The future of food, I think, one of the most important things is that it's got a very, very long runway for the next 10, 20, 30 years. It's really about, providing long-term supply to export to the rest of the world. So we think about the future of food as connecting the value chain from farm to shelf. I think any company today, you cannot do all the innovation yourself. Certain innovation would have different time horizons. I think the biggest challenge and the number one thing for any CEO, so you always want to go faster, you always want to do more, you always want to try more. So I think speed is always a challenge, but it's a good challenge. So I think it's very important to have a culture of speed in a company. In Thai Wah, we say our long-term vision is really to create value from farm to shelf. So if you look at Thai Wah's footprint today, all our different products, we've got a consumer product, which is our noodles, our B2C. We do consumer food products, we do noodles, we do packaged foods. We've got a B2B business focusing on starch, flours, tapioca-based products. And we started a new business, which is more specialty ingredients. The future of food, I think, one of the most important things is that it's got a very, very long runway for the next 10, 20, 30 years. If you think about the total amount of food supply that's going to come in the next 10 years, a lot of it will actually come from Southeast Asia. Consumers today, they're demanding different types of food, whether it's carbohydrate, proteins, fibers, it's ingredients. So I think a lot of the future of the food is really about providing long-term supply to export to the rest of the world. Thai Wah, we've got 14 operations around the region, primarily based in Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, as well as sales and distribution offices in China and Indonesia as well. So we think about the future of food as connecting the value chain from farm to shelf. We work very closely with over 10,000 farmers in Southeast Asia region, producing all kinds of tapioca and tapioca-related food products. We think of innovation probably in two ways. One is internal R&D and one is external partnerships. I think any company today, you cannot do all the innovation yourself. Certain innovation would have different time horizons. So for example, one of the innovations we've been working with in terms of farming is working with one of the leading technology startups in Thailand to actually look at digital farming and smart farming, looking at different types of technology, satellite imagery, AI, to actually see how we can improve the crop yield for some of the farmers in Thailand. Another project we're working with is one of the top universities in Thailand to look at different types of biotechnology engineering to actually produce new types of food products. So we do have a very strong in-house R&D, which we actually develop our own technology and our own innovation. But I also think at the same time it's very important for corporates to have external partnerships where you can work with startups, universities, institutes to actually in-source different types of ideas. The other thing about food innovation, I think, is that food innovation has a different life cycle. Some innovation, for example, software technology or software engineering, you can pivot in 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Typically, the cycles for food innovation are slightly longer. So you're looking at 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. So we have to develop projects with different types of project life cycle to make sure that we're developing new innovation for our customers. I think the biggest challenge and the number one thing for any CEO who's trying to drive innovation is speed, right? So you always want to go faster, you always want to do more, you always want to try more. So I think speed is always a challenge, but it's a good challenge. On one hand, you have to keep pushing the team to say, okay, let's try something new, let's reach a new milestone, let's stretch ourselves. On the other hand, we cannot go too fast, right? Because innovation, I think, is not exactly a box, right? Innovation is trying different things. So the way we think about our innovation programs, whether it's in the farm, it's in food manufacturing or food technology, is typically in terms of a few months. So most of our pilots, we try to roll out in, let's say, 1, 2, 3 months. So I think it's very important to have a culture of speed in a company. And for Thai Wah, typically we try to look at projects in the range of a few months. So, we don't look at 1 or 2 years is generally looking at a direction of R&D and direction of technology. But innovative projects should be able to move fast in about 1, 2, or 3 months. I think most important is that as a company, we need to try to develop a customer mindset. Most importantly, I think from the CEO is to actually ask yourselves, what does customer want? What are the new trends today in the world? How can we serve our customers better for the next 5, 10, 15 years? For Thai Wah, because today we've got 14 operations all around the world, we export to some of the most key markets, China, US, Japan, Korea. So we try to spend as much time as we can listening to the customers, making sure the customer feedback comes back into the company. In terms of our internal capability, I work very closely with our R&D and innovation teams. So actually last week, I was just at Chulalongkorn because we built our Thai Wah Innovation Center as part of the Chulalongkorn University. So we actually work with some of the students there, the graduate students, the PhD programs, and we reviewed all the different projects that our team is working in the university. And I think by the CEO, by giving an emphasis to actually work with our R&D teams and innovation teams, encouraging them, trying new things, I think that tries to set an innovation culture for the company. First of all, I think it improved a lot compared to, let's say, 5 years ago or 10 years ago. I think, the Thai government, Thai institutes, Thai universities are much more, forward-thinking. A lot of the projects, I think, comes down to the scope of the project. So, for example, I think a lot of the R&D projects in today's world, it cannot be too long. If you plan a 3-year project, after 3 years, the customers, they already, move on to something else. So part of the reason why commercialization is always challenging is that the customer changes, every year, or the customer changes every 6 months. So the collaboration with the private sector and the public sector, I think, has to be well scoped. There's certain aspects of food innovation which is very long term, right? If you're looking at molecular biology, you're looking at biotechnology, you're looking at genetic engineering, those are very long term, right? 3 years, 5 years. But I think for commercialization of food innovation projects, if the project is well scoped, for example, 1 to 2 years, and there are certain milestones, then I think the project can be more successful because the consumers are changing so fast, right? Consumers now, they change every year. So that's part of the reason that I think we can improve by having better structured projects, shorter time frame, maybe 1 or 2 years, but different milestones for each of the commercial projects. For longer term R&D, so the reality is that a lot of the really long-term blue ocean food innovation will take time. It may take 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, but we have to start today. For me, one of the most enjoyable things about Thai Wah is just working with external partners. We work with some very large Thai corporates. We work with startups. We work with universities. And I think as a CEO, the most important thing in an innovative world is that no company can do everything. Every company has its strength. Every company has its own DNA. Every company has its own talent. I think having an open mindset to partner with different startups, different universities, different external partners, that's how we can truly build innovation for the long term.